15th, 1947. A cold Wednesday morning in Los Angeles. A woman walks with her daughter through a quiet stretch of South Norton Avenue in Leimert Park. It's still early, still calm, but that peace is about to shatter. She sees something pale on the edge of a vacant lot. A mannequin, she thinks at first. Abandoned, broken, but something feels wrong. As she steps closer, she realizes it's not a mannequin at all. It's a woman, Elizabeth Short, but the world would come to know her as the Black Dahlia. Welcome to the Midnight Files, True Crime Uncovered. I'm your host, Brian, and tonight we begin with one of the darkest legends in true crime history. Before we begin, I want to make it clear that everything that's being said is based on facts, history, recorded documents available on the internet. Now let's dive into it. So, who was Elizabeth Short? Elizabeth Short was born July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 daughters. Her early life was marked by instability. In 1930, her father, Cleo Short, abandoned the family by faking his suicide, leaving behind nothing but his car on a bridge and the implication that he had taken his own life. The truth? He simply disappeared. Years later, he re-emerged in California, asking for forgiveness. Elizabeth never truly recovered from that betrayal. As a child, Elizabeth suffered from chronic bronchitis and had lung issues, which led to her spending winters in Florida. She often fantasized about movie stardom. By her late teens, she had grown into a striking young woman with dark hair, porcelain skin, and vivid green eyes. Always impeccably dressed in black, she exuded a Hollywood mystique. Her dramatic look, paired with the release of the noir film The Black Dahlia, earned her the nickname, the Black Dahlia. Friends described her as sweet, polite, and a bit mysterious. She rarely stayed in one place, often couch surfing or relying on the kindness of men she met. She told stories of working as a model or actress, but few could verify those claims. What we do know, she was chasing something, a future she believed she deserved. Los Angeles in 1947. To understand this case, you need to understand Los Angeles in 1947. Post-war LA was booming. Soldiers were coming home. Hollywood was in its golden age. But beneath the glitz and glamour was a city ripe with corruption, poverty, and unchecked vice. The LAPD was notoriously crooked. Racial tensions were high. Women who came west looking for stardom often found themselves in dangerous territory. The city was both dream and nightmare. Elizabeth Short walked these streets during a time when being a beautiful, unattached woman could be a risk in itself. She was navigating a world that offered opportunity, but also preyed on the vulnerable. The final days. In the days before her murder, Elizabeth was last seen at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA on January 9th. She was reportedly meeting a former boyfriend. Hotel staff said she seemed a little anxious. After that, she disappeared. She vanished. For 6 days, no one knew where she went or who she was with. Then came January 15th. Betty Bersinger was walking with her 3-year-old daughter when she saw what she thought was a mannequin. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was something far more disturbing, the lifeless body of a young woman. The scene was unusual and unsettling, with the body carefully placed and posed, leading authorities to believe the act had been deliberately staged. She had been washed, cleaned, and there were ligature marks on her wrists, ankles, and neck. She had been tortured for hours, and yet there was no blood at the scene. She had been murdered elsewhere and then carefully placed. The investigation. The LAPD launched one of the largest investigations in its history. Hundreds of detectives worked the case, and more than 150 suspects were questioned. Over 60 people, however, confessed to the murders, but none were credible. The press quickly took hold of the narrative. The Los Angeles Examiner tricked Elizabeth's mother into revealing personal details by telling her Elizabeth had won a beauty contest. Then they dropped the truth. Her daughter was dead. That manipulation helped sell papers. The media portrayed Elizabeth as a seductress, a young woman living a double life. They implied she led men on, that she was dangerous. But what was the reality? She was broke, possibly homeless, and trying to survive. The Hodell theory. Years later, one suspect would stand above all the rest. Dr. George Hodell. A wealthy physician, Hodell lived in an ornate Soudan house, a Frank Lloyd Wright-inspired mansion in Hollywood. He was brilliant but arrogant, and he was deeply troubled. He threw decadent, often bizarre parties attended by artists and elites. He was obsessed with surrealist art, and he was the only person capable of leaving Elizabeth's body in the state that it had been found. In 1949, George Hodell was investigated for molesting his own daughter. During that probe, the LAPD bugged his home. The tapes included this quote: "Supposin' I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's no longer alive." Creepy? Absolutely. Decades later, Hodell's own son, Steve Hodell, a retired LAPD detective, would publish a book accusing his father of the murder. He presented photos, circumstantial evidence, and timelines that seemed to fit. Was it strong enough? That depends on who you ask. George Hodell fled to the Philippines shortly after the investigation and never returned. Other suspects. Dr. Walter Bailey, a surgeon who lived near the crime scene. He had medical expertise and a potential grudge. Leslie Dillon, a bellhop and an inspiring crime writer who seemed to know too much about the case. He implicated another man, but he was deeply suspicious himself. Mark Hansen. He was a nightclub owner who housed Elizabeth briefly. He was one of the last known people to see her alive. Her address book was found in his possession. Each suspect had motive, opportunity, or connection, but none could be tied to the murder definitively. The autopsy and forensics. The coroner's report was gruesome. Elizabeth had been bound, tortured, and cut with a surgical precision. Her body had been slashed and there were bruises all over her body. The media legacy. Elizabeth Short became more than a murder victim. She became a symbol. Her story has been told in countless books, films, and documentaries. Brian De Palma's 2006 film, The Black Dahlia, dramatized the case. Shows like The American Horror Story have borrowed from her story. But behind the myth is a real person, a 22-year-old woman with hopes, flaws, and dreams. Her murder became entertainment. Her name became legend, but her killer was never found. Why does this case still haunt us? Because it's unsolved, because it's symbolic, because Elizabeth Short became the face of a city's darkest secrets. Her story reflects how women are portrayed in crime media, how the justice system can fail, and how myth can overtake truth. Some believe the killer is long dead. Others think that the case could still be solved with modern forensic tools. But for now, the Dahlia remains in the shadows. Thank you for joining me for this premiere of The Midnight Files, True Crime Uncovered. Elizabeth Short deserved more than what the world gave her. Her murder remains a dark mirror on American culture, media, and justice. Next week, we will dive into another unsolved case. Murder. Disappearances. Find out next week on The Midnight Files, True Crime Uncovered. Good night.